WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. Today's program builds itself around education, and someone that can certainly have that conversation as we begin a new school year is Dr. Wesley Johnson with the City Schools right here in Clinton. Wesley, thank you for coming back. You've been on this show quite a bit, and you're always willing to come and have a seat and have a conversation about education and the importance of public education in everybody's lives today. I want to start the show with congratulations to you. You had a recognition a while back, and I know a lot of folks know this, but I want to just maybe mention it and let you speak to the importance of this. But you were named the Superintendent of the Year for the Southeast Education Alliance, and we're talking 15 school districts in southeastern North Carolina, and you were the Superintendent of the Year. To me, that's pretty huge, and congratulations on that recognition.
Well, thank you, Mr. JW. It's an honor. And first, the way that I look at the superintendency is much like I did as a coach. And so I have been gifted with a wonderful school system that has a ton of great talent and great experience. And so to be honored as the superintendent of the region just shows that I've got a lot of highly qualified and very well organized schools and teachers and students and community. And so there's a lot of backing here in Clinton, and I definitely feel the support, and definitely want to say thank you to everyone and all the work that they've done to get Clinton to where it is. And I'm just honored to be a part of Clinton City Schools.
With that opening, I obviously want to segue from there and talk with you about the importance of school districts, i.e. whether it's the Sampson County Schools and Clinton City Schools, or whether it's Bladen County Schools, or whatever school district it is. How important is it to have a collaborative relationship with those districts from your position to be able to improve not only what we do in the city of Clinton with this district, but how we better serve the students and the families in the area?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's also kind of difficult to answer, but I think to give you an easy answer, I think it's so important. To speak directly from the position of the superintendent, we actually just had a meeting this morning about this, and I met with what's called the NCSSA, North Carolina School Superintendents Association. I'm a member of their executive director board, which is about 20 of us. And what we talked about is the role of the superintendent is a very difficult position. There is a lot of different things that are thrown at you. And to have another individual, because there's not another superintendent in your school system, you're the only one. And so when you have relationships and collaborative partnerships with other districts, like you mentioned, if you're addressing an issue maybe you've not seen before, this is different, you can pick up the phone and you can call one of your superintendent friends and colleagues to say, hey, have you addressed an issue like this? How did you handle it? What are some scenarios, some landmines I need to be aware of in this type of situation? But I think to answer it more broadly, to get back to kind of the rhetoric that we're up against now in the world, I'm just a fan of public education. I've been a part of the public education system here in Sampson or Clinton City, but Sampson by and large for 25 years. And so I'm a fan of public education. So I'm a fan of the Bladen counties, the Sampson County schools, the Duplin County schools. And so whatever I can do to assist them with making their school system better or their students more prepared for this next generation, then that's what I feel like we need to be doing. It needs to be a collaborative team effort.
As you just pointed out, you've been in various roles in the public school system right here in this county, everything from teacher to assistant principal to assistant superintendent, of course now superintendent. What is the big thing that you draw from your experience that helps you better do your job in carrying out the governance issues that is levied to you by the Board of Education?
Community. We mentioned that word before we even went on. I think that we have to see ourselves as a community. It's not the teacher versus the parent, or the parent versus the principal, or the parent against the Board of Education. We're all a collective collaborative, and we need to be working together. We need to be about the students. That needs to be our mission. We need to be working collaboratively to get the students the best education possible so that they can compete on a global market. If there's anything that I've learned in 25 years, Mr. JW, it's that we're in competition. We're in competition with other countries and other entities around this globe, and we need to be preparing our students for their future. We need to be preparing them for this next level. If it's college, or if it's military, or if it's community college or career, we need to be working collaboratively together to get our students ready for what they're going to see in their futures and make them successful in their futures as well.
One of the things as we sit here and have this conversation today that strikes me is we're at the very precipice of a new school year starting, 23-24 school year. You're the superintendent. You're looking at things that none of us can see, because the way you look at it and the way you view it and the position you view it from is different than what we can see. What concerns you the most as you look forward in this school year? What is the thing that you maybe strikes you that you spend more time thinking about, that maybe you feel like needs maybe more attention, that you feel like you maybe have not the control you wish you did have? What is that thing that troubles Dr. Wesley Johnson looking at 23-24?
Well, try not to have a lot of troubles, but just looking, I guess I would use that term again, the rhetoric. And there's going to be things with each legislative cycle. And, I think that's why we have balance of power. I think that's very important. When we talk about the legislative side of our government, is to have balance of power. But when there's a group that's trying to push in a certain direction, maybe a little too far than they need to, that's when I think we need to come back to balance of power. I'll give you an example. I think that's what you're looking for. So there's this rhetoric now that public education is possibly broken, and maybe we need to be funneling more monies into privatizing public education. Maybe we need to take money that's been set aside for public education in years far and long ago, and maybe need to move more and more of that money to the individual's parents and give them more autonomy in choosing what school they want their kids to go to. But we've always been able to do that. There's always been able to be choice. And then we talked about, well, the choice was only for certain groups, the more affluent. And so then that was where we had these opportunity scholarships that became available. But now with what we're trying to do, it seems like in the current legislative cycle, we're trying to give monies to anybody. And there's no qualifications based on finances. And if you make $1 million a year, you would still get opportunity scholarships to send your kids to schools maybe outside of public education. Well, those individuals already had that choice. And so I guess my concern is just the rhetoric that we're putting on public education, because like you shared, I've been a part of public education for 25 plus years, and there are some really good schools and really good teachers and really good principals that are part and have been a part of Clinton City and Sampson County schools for those many, many years. And I just want them to know that in Sampson County, we're doing public education the right way.
In following that thread, as we look at expectation of parents versus reality of the capacity and capability of public schools in the state, speak to that issue, if you will, to help parents kind of understand from the education point of view, because here's where the dilemma seems to be occurring, is that quite often parents are not educators. They may be great at whatever job they do, but there's certain things you have to do as an educator. There's certain ways you deliver a lesson plan. There's certain objectives and quantitative analysis you have to do. Is it right for us to just say to parents, well, whatever you think, that's what we're going to do? Or do you need to explain better what the true role is and capacity and capability of our education system is, and what that expectation, how that's levied to parents?
Well, I think it goes back to something I shared a few moments ago. I think we have to see it as a partnership. I'm not an electrical engineer. I mean, my dad works with electricity and has done his whole life. His dad worked with electricity. If I need to put a fan up in my house, I don't go cut the breaker off and start installing the fan. I either call my dad or tell my dad to come over and him help me put the fan in. I don't want to tell my dad, you put the fan in and I'm going to sit back and watch. I want you to educate me on how to do it, because when you're no longer with me, hopefully I will have gained that skill. So getting back to what we're saying, I think as educators, we should have a partnership with our parents. We should have a partnership with our families. We should be wanting to show them not necessarily how to become educators, but how that they can partner with us and how they can do things at home to enhance the education that their child is going to receive while they're in our schools. And then when they go home, they can have these partnerships that they're already built so that we can see ourselves as this collaborative that's working together for the benefit of their child.
And with that, one of the things that strikes me is this idea of not only education for the students in your school, but as you mentioned a while ago, and I'm so glad you brought that forward, is this idea of the word community. It's also the education of the community at large. And what I'd like to do is, when we come back from this break, is kind of open the door to that idea of how do we, not only from your seat, but people like myself and others in the community, how do we better educate ourselves in understanding the education system and accepting part of that role of, when we say something about it, that we're willing to be about it as well as say something about it. So we're going to take a break and we'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson, Superintendent of Clinton City Schools, about education in the coming school year. We'll be back in a moment.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Most aging adults want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And as your loved ones get older, you want to support them, even when you can't be there. Star is proud to offer Star Alert. This new system is now mobile and has GPS compatibility, so your loved ones can live their lives and you can have peace of mind, knowing they can get the help they need with just the simple push of a button. The new Star Alert also offers automatic fall detection, so help will be alerted even if they can't press the button. Call and ask about Star Alert today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. My name is JW Simmons. I'm your host. We're talking about education today, and we're looking at the coming school year as we sit here and anticipate school opening, the preparation involved in that, and a person that's very aware of what's going on and has been preparing for some time for school opening in 23-24 school year is Dr. Wesley Johnson. Dr. Johnson, thank you for being with us. We talked about a lot of stuff and touched on some things in the first segment. This particular time, I want to kind of get into that communication angle between the community at large, with the students involved, with teachers, with the administrative area of which you sit in. Help us understand how critically important it is for those parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, to look at the school children, even as the buses go out. Sometimes I think when these buses hit the road and, we talk about safety and all those kinds of things, but the connectivity that is so important for that child to have, and I'm going to use this word and you define it for me, or this phrase and you define it for me, a better education. How much are we all involved in that?
Wow. I like the word you used, Mr. JW, connectivity. I think the more we're connected, we talked about earlier about these polar opposites, and I think very few of us are on the polar extremes of the end. I think we got a lot of people that are here, and the more that we can stay connected, the better that we can be in educating a child. What's the old saying? It takes a village to raise a child. And so you were even mentioning, you talked about safety and this and that. Well, yeah, I mean, the more we know, I think that's the title of your program.
Yeah,
we should know.
Yeah.
The more we know, the better educated we are. And with the society that we currently live in, we've had conversations about social media, and there's a lot that goes on social media. So there's no way that Wesley Johnson can know everything that's happening on social media. And that's why parents are so critically important, and grandparents and aunts and uncles, because they have the individual, they have that individual in their home. And if they're connected with their child, then they know what's going on in their child's life. And if there's something that's going on that's affecting their child, if their child has had a bad experience, possibly with another student, or they've had a bad experience in an athletic program or a band program, if there's things going on, you need to let us know so that we can be aware of that and aware of your child's needs, so that we can stay connected. We can work together for the betterment of your child. That's what this whole education world's about, is to grow individual students and help them to achieve their dreams, their goals, and their desires.
One of the things that surfaced some years ago, and ever so often it comes back up, is this whole idea, and this builds around what we're talking about here, this connectivity issue, this whole idea of dress codes in schools. Oh, yeah. What do you wear to school? What do you have access to wear to school? Do you even have a bag to carry your books in? Are books valid today in a world of technology? Do we still need books? All of these things come up as kind of a collage of events and information that hits the public, and they're going, well, no, I never thought about that. You can't do away with books. Well, you shouldn't have that book, and you can't wear that to school. And how do you deal with all of that and keep things pretty much level? Because you do have, as you just pointed out, extreme thinking ways out there, and all of a sudden you have a kid that shows up and you go, well, that's just not acceptable. And what is that? And how do you look at that from not only what the school board is telling you, but your ability to be able to carry out that?
Yeah, that's good. The thing that was coming to my mind as you were speaking, and I'm just going to go with it. There's this terminology that we always say as educators, and I know you're an educator.
Yeah.
Good teaching is good teaching. Not to say what was always done in the past is good or acceptable, but teaching is a methodology.
Yeah.
There are methods to teaching, and that's what we evaluate on. We evaluate to see if the teacher is using those methodologies that have been proven to be research-based. So if teachers are using those methodologies, they can put their own unique stance on it. Maybe I'm more direct, and I like to do more teaching from the chair or at the whiteboard or the interactive board, because all that changes. Or maybe I'm a different teacher and I like to use collaborative groups more, and I like to use the internet to maybe have relationships with students across the globe, even in China or whatever. I mean, think about, we used to do pen pals. It's just a different way to do it. But good teaching methodologies are good teaching methodologies. Good strategies are good strategies. The proof's in the pudding. I mean, in North Carolina, like it or not, we have accountability standards, and we have EOGs and EOCs. And if you're doing good things for kids, you're going to see those on those tests. Now, the test is not the be all and end all, but it's going to help to show that you're doing good things. And that's why we have those and observations and teacher evaluations and things like that to make sure that their good teaching is coming out, from the classroom.
Is it important, and you mentioned the acronyms there, I'm going to let you touch on what that actually means, but is it good for us to say, okay, this person just didn't make the test that well, and then but yet that same child is just extremely great, for example, with how many times they can throw a ball through a basket or some other skill that's a manual skill, but yet they're equated in their, quote, success in the educational sector in their score on that test. So speak to that, and also the acronyms you just used, clarify the EOGs and those kind of things.
Yeah, well, we talked about EOGs, which are end of grade exams.
Exactly.
They're given in North Carolina in English and reading, English/reading and math, grades 3 through 8, and then science, grade 5 and grade 8, and then EOC, which stands for end of course exam. There used to be a ton of those when I was a high school principal. Now there's only 4. So there's Math 1, NC Math 3, English 2, and Biology. To answer your question, I think that's more of a difficult answer. That was the easy part.
Yeah.
Does a score equate success? Well, it can, but there are other strengths and weaknesses that all individual children have. I'm a firm believer in the creative power of our Creator, who inundates individuals with different strengths, different talents. This guy right here is not musically inclined at all. I like music. I think music is wonderful. Give me a guitar, I'm lost. Give me a basketball, softball, I'm okay. Some of those things I've also been taught. So could I learn to be a guitarist? Maybe not. I didn't have a desire to do that. So yes, there are individuals with great talents, and that's what I really think. Going back to my previous segment when we talked about public education, that's why I'm a huge fan of public education, because we call them comprehensive high schools. When you're at a comprehensive high school, you take the students' individual talents and strengths, and maybe they're really good at marketing. Well, we got a marketing department. Maybe they're really good at home economics. Well, we got a home economics department. We got art. We got band. We got all these different things, all these variety of sports that students can get involved in and play in. And then if you're really good at that, you can take that to a career, or maybe you can take it to get a free college education if you're really good at dribbling a basketball or dribbling a soccer ball. So it just really helps when you're at these comprehensive public high schools that there are varied approaches. Yeah, everybody's going to earn a degree, everybody's going to earn a diploma, but what were your specialties while you were at that school?
And that particular thought process, when I think about it, strikes me that there is a comparative rationale there, that the test, if it's the end of course test, it compares what you have learned and quantitatively says the teachers and the system as a whole has done their job if you score at least within a certain quadrant of what other schools of similar design and perspective. Is that the correct assumption on that?
That's the correct assumption, and that's in a perfect world scenario. So in a perfect world scenario, all locales being created equal, that if you have this type of teacher and you're provided this type of instruction, you should be able to score at this level. But what about different locations? We'll take Chapel Hill and Clinton. There's a vast difference in the residents of Chapel Hill and Clinton. Just to say, demographic differences, educational background differences, socioeconomic differences, the number of students who come to Clinton City Schools that are students of second languages. Their moms and dads speak a different language other than English. So those aren't perfect world scenarios. So it's almost impossible to equate the standardized test scores that's a key word, standardized test scores between those two different systems, because they are uniquely and profoundly different.
And the relationships that is necessary for these different kinds of backgrounds becomes critical to how not only you administer the educators, but the educators' understanding. When we come back from this break, I want to kind of move to an area that has been talked about, but your perspective I want to touch on, and that is those educators, those teachers, those people that is in the classroom. And this is one of the key things the Public School Forum talks about, and you're well aware of, is that not only the retention of, but the factor of teachers and their salaries and their ability to be financially rewarded in today's world. And we'll talk about that, but the reality is at some point in time, we have to realize, I think, that educators are never going to make enough money to buy a yacht. So let's just think on that when we come back, and I'll leave that thought there. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking about education with Dr. Wesley Johnson. Stay tuned and call a friend.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our STAR Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. JW Simmons here, your host. The name of the show is We Should Know. We want to thank you for being with us today. We're coming to you on Star Communications TV Channel 16, WCLN Radio. We're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson. Dr. Johnson, Superintendent of City Schools, one of the things you deal with is those people that work with you and for you that are called educators. Most folks refer to them as teachers. According to the North Carolina Public School Forum, fair and competitive compensation for educators is top of the list. They rank folks as 38th in the nation, teachers here, in the pay with an average of about $53,000 a year. Now, depending on where you are, that might sound like a lot of money, but for a teacher in a comparative analysis nationally, they're indicating that we're 38th in the nation. That's not really a thing that we want to beat drums together and sing about. How hard is it for you to get and retain the educators you need to deliver what the community and parents and others expect?
Well, there's a lot in that segment that you just talked about in that question, Mr. JW. But to answer the question, one of the things that we try to do really hard here at Clinton City Schools is we try to create a family type environment. I think we do a really good job of that. So how difficult has it been for us to retain teachers? I would say not very difficult, but it is because we try so hard to create this climate and culture where we're a family. Very small district. I think last year in 2021-22, not the 22-23 data, but 21-22, we were in the top 5 in the state in teacher retention. So that just goes to show you the wonderful work, and that didn't come from here. That came from all the work of my teachers, all the work of my principals, all the work of my central office staff to create this type of environment through things like what we call PLCs, professional learning communities. We have a fantastic beginning teacher program so that if you come to us as a new teacher, we're going to inundate you with support. And so lots of support, but to get to the thought behind the question. So I'm married to a teacher, so I get a little passionate about this. And our oldest daughter is a rising senior, and she is part of our Dark Horse Fellows program because she is planning to become a teacher. But our teachers are professionals, just like a nurse is a professional, just like a doctor. They have degrees. They've gone to school. Many of them have to have help with finances to get their education degrees, and they come to us with sometimes a lot of debt because they've had to go to school. So they need to be making more money because they have a 4-year degree. Some of them have master's degrees, some of them have doctorates. So they've been to school a long time. So yes, I would like to see the state put in a more concerted effort to pay our teachers what I feel like that they're worth.
Of course, as you know, as we sit here today, the legislature is still working on a budget. So we don't know whether that's going to happen before school starts, after school starts. Clearly, it's going to take more time. What would you say today to folks in the legislature from your seat as superintendent? Here's just what I'm looking at and what we need. What would you say to those folks?
Well, I like how you started the segment off, a fair compensation. I think that was what you said. And it's hard to determine what fair compensation is. But to use those statistics that you used, 38th in the nation, I think we as North Carolina, I think if you look at population, I think we're in the top 10 now. I think something like 9 in the country. And the number of people that call North Carolina home. Thankfully, I've always called North Carolina home. This is definitely home for me. And I think we have one of the most top-tier system in the country. I mean, just look at the universities that are in North Carolina. I mean, you're talking about Duke, Chapel Hill, UNCW. I mean, there's some great universities. And so we are training our young folk for their futures. And the thing I say about teachers, and this is the one profession that can say this, we touch all those people. We train all those future presidents, future doctors, future lawyers, future educators. They all come through our system. So shouldn't we be investing in that profession that trains all the next generation for all the key jobs that they're going to have? So I think that's very vital and very important.
And of course, you know, the numbers that I tout here are obtainable, but I know because I'll get folks that'll say, well, where'd you get that number from? Well, the North Carolina Public School Forum. You can look at different, I guess, perspectives on this issue, but that has been one of the concerns in this state, and literally one that has been touted on the outside of the legislature and other places, that things need to be done. But there's a limit. You know, locally there's a limit budget-wise. Right. Locally there's a limit statewide. What are we willing to pay as a community? And I keep circling back to that idea that you and I have talked about off air of the community. The idea of how do we not only obtain but retain school teachers in 23-24 school year becomes very important. And the other word that comes up is that idea of teachers with a diversified background. And that goes back to your idea of the importance because of language in rural areas. As a representative on this regional that I opened with today that you now were recognized as Superintendent of the Year for, is this something that you folks talk about a lot, is how do we get these teachers and how do we retain them? And what is some of the things that you do to retain a teacher? You just alluded to a few, but is that really a big issue? And can you collaborate with other school systems in southeastern North Carolina in relationships, and if necessary, trading teachers back and forth when needed?
That's a critical issue. So you asked like the importance, probably the number one. I mean, I think, it's not even I think, research goes to prove that the number one factor in a child receiving an appropriate education is the teacher in the classroom. You have to have good teachers in every single classroom in North Carolina to get a good citizenry. Let's use that word. And so teachers are the most important. Principals are important. Superintendent may be important, I guess, but the teacher is the most important. And so it's foundation that we have to have a good teacher. And so what I think is important is that we have more training that's going into our educators before they get to us. We need to have more people going into education. We need to have more individuals who feel like education is a viable option. It's a good option. We want it to be a positive option. One of the things that we've started, and I'm going to get to the other part of your question in just a minute. One of the things that we've started here in Clinton is our Dark Horse Fellows program. And it's a grow your own type teacher program. Through a generous gift from the Anonymous Trust and from others, we are training teachers in high school and getting their interest to become teachers, and they go to school and they receive a grant, a loan of $40,000, and if they'll come back and teach in Clinton City Schools for 4 years, they owe nothing. And so that's been a big benefit for us because we get people that want to become educators, ties them right back to Clinton City Schools. They go off to any school they want to, Fayetteville State, Campbell, wherever. 4 years they come back and teach for us. And so that's vital. You asked me about the kind of the relationship with other districts. Well, last year we were part of a program with Edenton Chowan. They looked, scoured the globe, we'll say, and could not find the English 4 teacher. I have one English 4 teacher at my high school, fantastic. She was able, because of online and things like we're doing today with cameras, she was able to feed the instruction from her classroom to Edenton Chowan, and they were able to receive an education from a certified teacher that they would not have been if she was not being able to do that. And then she was compensated by Edenton Chowan for providing that supports and instruction to their students.
I want to get this in. We've got to go to break in a minute here, but I want to get this in. So are we looking at a broader effort in trying to create collaboratives, or should I say, increase the communication of collaboratives between districts, school districts, to share and care and nurture each other?
Yes, I think we are trying to do that. I think sometimes we kind of get pigeonholed a little bit in the way things have been. You know, sometimes a dirty word is tradition. And we think traditionally, when I think we should be thinking more what technology allows us to do. Now, COVID taught us a lot of things, and COVID taught us that we can provide some type of instruction. It may not be as good as face-to-face, and I think we've seen that with test scores, but that we can provide some type of instruction, and some type of instruction by a certified teacher is better than no instruction from a non-certified teacher, going back to what I said earlier, that the teacher is the most important person in this whole educational dichotomy.
So the process of that is in place, and your involvement with these other school district leaders allows you to be able to not only entertain and look at other ideas, but also look at what is, quote, in their fruit basket and say, that's something we need here, or this is something we have that might benefit you, and you can share it through technology.
Absolutely. I think what we've always tried to do is what's internal, what's inside that we can do that. And we've done that for a long time. We might have a teacher that we're sharing to use the county schools. We might have a teacher that we're sharing between Hobton and Midway. That even happened when I was a principal. We had the teacher from Hobton go over to Midway because they were drivable distance. But now with technology, with what we're doing today, cameras, we can get cameras to shoot instruction from wherever, from Asheville City Schools to Clinton City Schools, and we can create opportunities for students that may not have been made available if it weren't for technology like we have today.
We're going to take a quick break and come back, but I want to try to get as much in. I'd like to do a semester. Maybe we could just roll this up. But there's so many issues in education now that's affecting not only our lives, but everybody in the state. And that's one of the reasons some of these things I've just kind of picked out and cherry picked. But when we come back, I want to touch on an issue that you're very familiar with that it affects everything in the state. And it's called behavioral health. And believe it or not, it's in the classroom, it's in the home, and everywhere else. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson. Stay tuned.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Star's whole home Wi-Fi provides ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Star's whole home Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections. So you can connect tons of devices throughout your home with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Star is always there to help you should any issues arise. Star's Whole Home Wi-Fi also comes with the Command IQ mobile app, putting you in control of your home network and making it easy to set up and connect devices, run network speed tests, pause Wi-Fi, and set parental controls all from the palm of your hand. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience. Contact Star today to get started.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We Should Know is on the air. JW Simmons here, your host. We're talking about education today, and we're talking with Dr. Wesley Johnson. Dr. Johnson, we've talked about a lot of things today, and your observations and willingness to sit in that chair and have these conversations has been very good for not only obviously for me but in understanding, but for the community as well. And you've been willing to do that. I want to thank you for that. We've transitioned into numerous topics, and as we've talked off air about things that we could look at. Any one of these things we could just run on it for 2 or 3 hours. But there's several key issues. In this last segment, I wanted to touch on what appears to be, from data and from just personal observation, is there's this increasingly conflict-oriented, what appears to be a more violent kind of society. And we've talked about the safety issues you've had at schools and so forth in the past. But one of the things that I looked at in an article talked about the root causes of mental health and public school crisis. This idea that how do you address mental health? What does it look like? How do you recognize that in a school system? As you look at 23, 24, we've seen unbelievable, horrific tragedies in our public schools throughout the country, small and large systems. This has got to concern you. Is there something you can share with us in what you understand, any kind of things that are happening that parents need to know about, that could help them better prepare that child to walk in that classroom with other people's children?
That's a deep one.
It is deep, and I realize we can just touch on it.
Right. So. As you were talking, what I was hearing is community issues are school issues. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to this sense of community. Mm-hmm. And I think that as we talked in the first segment, we talked about this partnership. And here in Clinton City, since we have such a strong community, I think we have a strong school system. I think they go hand in hand. When your community is not strong, when there are cracks, when there are deficits, mm-hmm. you feel those in your schools. Mm-hmm. And for us in Clinton City, we have a great partnership with the PD. I mean, we have 3 of their officers serve as our SRO officers. I have a fantastic relationship with our chief. That's why I've been so willing to come on your program, and I enjoy it because we've got such a great community that our community needs to hear the fabulous things that are going on, mm-hmm. not just in the city schools, but in our town. Mm-hmm. And so, to get a little more deeper into the context of what you asked, what can we do? I think we have to stay aware. We have to stay aware of what's going on in our community. We have to stay aware of what's going on in our personal homes. This time and this age with digital and with phones readily available for anybody at the age of whatever age mm-hmm. they are now, sometimes we become a little more standoffish, mm-hmm. a little more closed. We become a little more isolated. And I don't think that's how we're innately designed. I think we're innately designed to be a community. And so we've got to talk, we've got to share, we've got to know what each other's kind of going through, and we've got to bear the burdens of one another instead of trying to do life and do it by ourselves, because if we try to do it by ourselves, we feel isolated. And when we feel isolated, that's not good. And so I think it's just to work together, to be a community, to be a partnership, going back to what we talked about, I think, in maybe the second segment about the parent and the home relationship. They're all vital, because issues at home become issues in the school. Issues in our community become issues in the schools. And so, but if we're all staying aware, if we're all being partners, if we're all being a family, then I think we're going to ultimately strive and get to where we want to be.
Is it important for schools to have trained and educated mental health counselors in those schools?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think it's also important now. A couple of years ago, North Carolina required mental health training for all of its educators, but we get like this amount. I mean, we don't have a 4-year, 6-year, most counselors or mental health advocates, they have to have at least a master's degree to have a credentials to be a counselor like that at that level.
Clinical psychology.
Clinical psychology, most doctorate.
Yeah.
But we get just enough. But yes, our guidance counselors are vital in this role. Our social workers are so important in this role between the school and the home. But I think it's more like we shared earlier. It's just, we gotta converse. We gotta talk. We gotta know if you're struggling with something, if your child's struggling with something. And that's why teachers are so important, because they form this word that starts with an R. They form relationships with students, and they share things with them. And then we can't hold those as, we got to share those with our guidance counselors, our social workers, our principals, so that we can provide them the supports that they need to be successful, not just for them to be successful, but for their families to be successful. So we have created lots and lots of partnerships in Clinton City Schools. I don't even want to start getting into all of them, but we have a great partnership with people like Comwell Health. We got a great partnership with Goshen Medical, where we're now coming out to the schools and we're providing medical services, dental services, whatever that our students need, whatever that they need to be successful, to have good health. If they need, a couple of years ago, we partnered with East Carolina to provide telehealth services for students who have some strong social and emotional needs that we can't necessarily put a clinical psychologist in the school system, but we can provide them access to telehealth where they can talk to someone that's like a clinical psychologist. Now, of course, we're going to get parental permission before we do something like that, but we want to make sure that we have access for our students to get the supports and helps that they need to be successful. Because if you're not successful in the belonging category, we could talk about Bloom's taxonomy here, you're not going to be successful in the educational category as well.
One of the things that strikes me in your commentary is that the idea that we need to look at the behavioral health in the sense of educating people of what that is, because there seems to be, just from what I've been reading and talking with folks, there's a certain stigma that all of a sudden pops up if somebody had to talk to the school behavioral health counselor, little Johnny or Susie or whoever. He must have issues, and all of a sudden they have this little aura. Well, let's stay away from them. They're a little bit, Is that an area that we're missing in this community collaborative, that it's okay to be able to sit down and have a conversation with a behavioral health person?
Well, I think as humans, I think we want to make it appear that everything's okay. But, in today's society, in today's world, we're educating all. We're educating the masses. So as all comes in the building, all don't have the same type of parental homes, parental supervision, parental help, or even grandparent assistance that maybe we had as we were growing up. But is there a stigma? I mean, we try to do everything like that very confidentially and very discreetly so that no one knows the extra supports that any child's receiving. I think that's vital. And so, I don't know that there's a stigma, but that we do try to ensure that if little Johnny, I think to use your terminology, if he needs some supports, we're going to try to make sure that he has those. Because I think it goes back to what we were saying. If we can't provide these supports that he needs to feel loved or nurtured or any of these, he's not going to get the education side. I mean, that's just, if you're not providing my belonging needs, then I'm not going to get what I need to get from the classroom. And then when little Johnny gets older and those needs become more extensive and we've not provided him the supports that he needed at a young age, then that's when we start getting worried about what might happen later in life. So it's very important to get that early, to get that relationship built, to get that sense of belonging and sense of self built so that we know and we can educate the child and they can be successful later on.
We've got about a minute here. If you had to say to parents listening today, what would you want to tell them to either do or to consider as they look at their child leaving the house, headed for school in just a short period of time here in August? What would you want them to know from the superintendent's perspective? Be sure to remember that your child needs, you fill in the blank.
Love, affection, a listening ear. Not only am I the superintendent, I'm also a dad, and a dad of 3 daughters, a rising senior, rising sophomore, and a rising 4th grader. So I've been doing education a long time, but I also been doing the dad for a while. And our kids need to feel like they've got somebody that's their advocate, somebody that's going to fight for them, somebody that's going to listen to them. And so I think it's important to be listening and loving and accepting and helping them to get a good 23, 24 and have a successful school year.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. If we could implant that, we could solve a lot of problems.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for being with us today, Dr. Johnson. It's always important for folks to understand not only what education is, but how it's going to continue to benefit us throughout our entire life. Thank you for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us today. This show comes to you from Star Communications Channel 16 TV, WCLN Radio. We've reached quite a few counties here in the eastern part of the state. It's also uploaded to social media platforms, YouTube, and all those kinds of things. So if you want to refresh your memory or go back and talk about to somebody about something we've said or didn't say, if you want to reach us, you can reach us very quickly at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.